is the 307th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the 4th week of July, 2019. This episode is titled, Why OmniFocus? I'm your host, Jason Atwood. Joining me, co-host. Feeling the middle of the summer. Looking like you got a little tan there. You had a good July 4th, 3-4 weeks ago. Justin Elstein. Justin, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I did have...
He actually is looking at his arms.
I'm pretty tan, looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it, feeling good.
There you go. You've had some time up in the Berkshires.
Oh, it's been lovely.
I mean, the ending to the Women's World Cup.
Trees.
Can't believe the way that happened.
Yeah.
Whew. Can you imagine?
I can't.
But we don't discuss that on this podcast,
No.
so we can't go over
That's
that.
sports. We
But
don't talk
whoa.
about sports.
So this is the second part in the 4-part series, Summer Series, GTD Summer Series. Last time we talked about the GTD Summit, and one of the things I talked about was meeting Ken Case, CEO of Omni Group. And we've talked a lot about the different pieces of GTD. We've talked about capture and clarifying. We've talked about weekly reviews. We talked about 2-minute rules. And we have a couple coming up that are going to be talking about calendars and what was the last one?
Commitments.
And commitments. But I really wanted to do one just on OmniFocus. First of all, I did write a blog post for Omni Group, which is now up on their website, which is under their it's called Inside OmniFocus, and there's a blog post about that. So it's up on the Omni Group website. It's called in the Inside OmniFocus thing. There's a whole bunch of external writers write, and I wrote about kind of why OmniFocus, but this is sort of a recap of that and why we use it. So I thought we'd start off sort of talking a little history.
Sure.
Talk about where it came from, what it is, and then really, well, we can spin this into sort of the picking of tools, because I help people evaluate tools a lot, and I've done a lot of that in the last couple months. I've been helping organizations figure out which tool they want to use for their sort of project and tasks. And so I've dug into a couple of these other ones. People come to me and say, hey, have you tried this? And so I go look at it. And every time I do one of those, I do come back to OmniFocus and I go, oh, this is why I use OmniFocus, because these set of features. And we'll talk about what those are and why I think they're important, and then maybe some of the downsides and things that could be made better. Sound good?
Sounds good to me. Why don't you... I mean, you know the Omni Group way better than I do, having been... I've been a Mac user now for about 10 years, maybe more. You've been a Mac user. You probably never switched.
Commodore 64.
Right, but then when you got a Mac, you probably never went back to Windows. Like, were you
Except
a Windows 95 user at home?
Never at home.
Okay, only at work, where it was sort of required.
Correct.
So,
and it was never 95, because at work it was NT40.
Well, yeah.
Or
at
NT.
Work, NT right to like 98 or something.
Then it went to NT4 and then something else. Anyway.
Yeah, so I never really had, a thing. Also, I wasn't really using GTD back then, but you have been doing GTD for, 15 years-ish?
So 2004 to 2019, let's call it 15.
Let's call that 15.
You could probably take a year of maybe kind of ins and out in the beginning before I became...
That'll happen. Yep. And Omni Group is a software company that makes software exclusively for the Apple, let me call it the Apple's suite of platforms and operating systems.
So what makes them interesting is they were actually a Next developer. So they used to develop software for Next, which
Steve
was...
Jobs' company.
Right. So when Steve Jobs left Apple, actually left or kicked out of Apple, if you ever saw
kicked out.
the movie or whatever, he goes off and creates Next, which is a... well, again, it was the next thing.
It was Apple 2.0.
Very expensive, very high-end boxes, and then they had their own operating system. And Omni Group started and built software for the Next platform. So they built. I mean, one of the ones that I remember from way back when that they ported immediately was OmniWeb, was a web browser, which actually had a lot of fun features in it for what it did back then. When Steve Jobs comes back to Apple, he then buys up Next and then uses the software, the OS, as a component or core of what is now OS X. So this thing that's now 15 years old, he used the core of that. So they, as Omni Group, just went, oh, well, we now have this bigger platform. And so they were like one of the first developers to kind of get into the Mac OS development. Now, they are now 100%, as far as I know, iOS OS X developer shop, and they only build software for that platform. And so back in the day when I was starting, so I started GTD, read the book, and
Let
started.
me walk you through this, because
Okay,
I'm not going
sure.
to have a whole lot to say on this podcast. So I want to get a couple words in here.
Okay, sure.
At the beginning, at the very least. So,
Okay.
so just when you read the book,
Yes.
did you start with the folders and the labelers
Yes.
and all the things in the book that are very old school with the 43 folders and this, that, the other?
I was almost going to do a terrible illustration. Yes, I started with the whole thing. I did the whole thing over a weekend. The apartment, the label maker, the folders, the manila folders, the whole thing.
Got it.
Putting it all in a physical inbox. I bought a file folder, like a 2-drawer, and put it all. Yes, I did all that.
And then at what point did you decide, or was it suggested to you that, hey, this doesn't need to be like a physical paper thing? You can, like, all these projects and these lists and these things can go into a digital system. Like, at what point did you decide to make that happen for yourself?
So I never used the folders as a replacement for lists. I use them for reference. So I put things in the reference material. But for all my tasks and projects, I always use digital.
Did you use like a Palm Pilot?
So yeah, I had a Palm Pilot, and I think we were in 2004, we were way beyond. Like, I think we were off the first couple versions of Palm. Because I remember I had one back in 97. I had the Palm 5000, so that was way before that. So I was now into like probably the Palm, maybe Trio or something like that, the one that actually could sync with the operating, like, physically it could sync up to the Mac, and that was great because I could have a task on my Palm and then my ubiquitous capture, and then it would sync to my desktop. Oh my goodness, like, it was brilliant, and contacts and things like that. Yeah.
And at that time, you were kind of split, right? Because you had your work and then you had life, and separated in your systems. Is that an accurate assessment, or were you able to sort of bridge that gap somehow?
Well, back then I think I
was just using it more for life, working.
I was more using it for life, but I was capturing tasks and things into the one system. There was one point much later, actually, when you were around, that I actually kept two different systems for the group, or for I used Outlook and the system for using Outlook, and then I used OmniFocus on my Mac side, and I had like 2 week reviews, and I had two. That's when people say, "Well, I don't know how to do a work thing." You can just split it out. Just you have your work stuff and you have your home stuff. I think it's better to have one system. Yeah. But if you physically can't because your system won't allow you, and they won't allow you to get to some sort of website to track it, then have two systems. Have 2 week reviews. I used to do one early on Friday morning for work.
I remember.
And then I
used to get a lot of emails on Friday.
And then I'd do one on Saturday.
Great. And when you decided, okay, it's time to like move away from these folders, and I want to see if I could digitize this capture process, you had your Palm, but then there's a level beyond that where it's like, okay, this isn't just existing on a Palm Pilot. This has to exist in a bigger thing that I can kind of get to in a more ubiquitous way. Where'd you go? Like, how'd you find this thing?
There's this place back then.
What's it called? The internet?
Yeah, it's called the internet. And I was listening to things and, reading blog posts of Merlin Mann and his 37 folders, or 36, 35, 37 folders, his website, and I was reading all his blog posts about it. And I started reading up, because again, back when you find a group that you're interested in and content, you want to get more content, give me more content about GTD. And I started reading about this one that has like, oh, this is a great way of managing all your tasks and your projects for the Mac, and it's called Kinkless GTD. And I was like, ooh, Kinkless GTD, that sounds cool. What is that? And what it was someone had taken another product of Omni Group's called Omni Outliner, which was an outline product. You could have, a thing and a thing underneath it and a thing underneath that. It's a planner, but it was really well done and, very, very good system. But it had these things called templates. And so someone had written up a template that took Omni Outliner and made it into a GTD system. and had some pretty cool little. I mean, it had some neat features to it. You could do folders of things. You could do, the big thing that gets a task manager beyond a task manager into something you can actually use for GTD is the theory of having is a hierarchy of having a project. I'm putting my hand here, and then things underneath the project, things that go to that project. And most task managers don't have that. They have a task and then another task, and you can't put tasks underneath. In fact, on the operating system that we use right now, like coming in the next release, coming in September, you're actually gonna be able to put tasks underneath tasks. So like that's, you would think like, oh, that's it's a big theory, but in order to really, the GTD, you need to have these things called projects. Tasks are underneath projects. So kind of thinking that hierarchy, this was one of the first things that could do it.
Kinkless
GTD, yeah.
And that was more of a, I guess not a hack. It was a template that somebody created that you could then leverage to bend it into the GTD methodology if you
wanted.
And
it became so popular that all these people were using it. And again, there was probably forums and things like that, back in the day. There were forums, people talking about it and saying how great it was. And then the guy was updating it. I don't remember his name, but at the GTD Summit, talking to Ken Case, he did remember his name, obviously. So obviously, Omni Group is watching this. People are buying Omni Outliner a lot. And they're watching it in their forums. They're going, what's going on? Why are people all using this for this? And they realized that there was a demand for a tool that could do this.
Right.
And so I don't know what happened behind the scenes. I mean, I kind of do because I've been watching it happen. But they basically said, oh, we're going to go create our own. They basically took the code, I think, of Omni Outliner and then built a GTD-focused application for managing GTD. OmniFocus. That's how I was born. So I was in the betas of it it was betaed forever. And it had some really great, features. It had some stuff that and we'll get out of the history and we'll talk about what it can do now. It's now on version 3. But think about that. That was
a while ago. I remember when it first came out and you and I were talking, I think it was in your office, and this was before I was practicing GTD, and you were doing your best to try to get me there, and you dropped the book on my desk a few times, and the iPhone came out, and then all of a sudden, location was a thing, and I recall you saying something to me that clicked, and you were like, yeah, GTD, and you were explaining GTD to me all the time, and it was like, it has these contexts, and like, one of the contexts could be like grocery store. And imagine if like, when you start walking down the street and you're like passing your grocery store, which it'll know because it knows your location, it could like alert you to be like, hey, Justin, you're at the grocery store. You have 3 things you could do right here if you had 5 minutes. And I was like, oh, that is cool. And I remember thinking like, all right, let me see what this is all about. And that was early on. And it was more the tech grab than the other stuff that today I would talk about in terms of, mind like water and clearing space, etc. But it was more this is a geeky fun thing. And if I just use this tool, it will tell me like what to do. Like, oh, I'm near a phone. What phone calls do I need to make? That was like very old school thinking, but in terms of GTD, but it still applies, right? I need to make a phone call. I'm not going to look at like things I've tagged as phone because I'm sitting with a phone. I'm always with a phone. Phone's in my pocket all the time. Phone's not even a good example, but I remember that very specifically, like, hey, location. Yep. And that being the grab for me, and not necessarily like, oh, I can get my tasks into a task manager. Because at times I struggled with that. It was like almost the hardest thing. I was like, okay, it's easy to sit here with a piece of paper and do a mind sweep and get everything out of my brain. I can write it all down. But then organizing it in a way that it made sense and that it would show me the things I needed to see when I needed to see them, and not show me all the things that are just all the things, because that's just super overwhelming. And that's what OmniFocus does really well. So why don't we talk about some of these features? I just talked a little bit about some of them, but what are your maybe give us 3 or 5 top features of OmniFocus that help you as a 15-year practitioner of GTD that make OmniFocus the thing? Like, this is the thing. I'm not moving off of it because it does these features awesome.
Sure. Why don't I start with all the stuff that it does that you just so you all know. First of all, it is only Mac version. They have a web version now. There's web, but there is no PC. There's no Android. So I know for a lot of people,
well, it's mobile. It's not just Mac. It's Apple.
Right. But I'm saying there's iOS, macOS,
right,
and there's a web version, but there's no Android and there's no PC. So just for those, I know that's a stopper for most people. So if that's a stopper, thanks for downloading. And
on to the next
and
one.
I'll talk to you later. So it does that. It does obviously tasks. It does context, which they now have renamed into tags, and you can do multiple tags per either project or tasks. It has folders for organizing, so you can put folders of your projects. So these are all just basics. It has a syncing engine in the background that can synchronize between your systems. So you drop something on one system, it'll then show up on the other system. You do it on here, it shows up there. It syncs across all the systems, and it syncs very well. We always say syncing is hard. They do syncing very, very well. It also it works with the Apple ecosystem in that you can use the woman's name, talk to her on your phone or whatever, and then it will pick that up and put it in and understands that, and you can talk, so you can capture tasks very quickly, and they will go right into your OmniFocus. These are but a lot of places will do these. This is sort of the basics. You can set things to start, give it dates, you can have calendar integration. So those are that's like what everything does. It has super tons of features. Now let's talk about the stuff that I would think. And again, we looked at another 3-4 weeks
while
ago,
we were there
last month. We looked at one called Nirvana, and and the developer was there, and we were talking to him. And I think when someone shows something, they're like, oh, here's what it can do. So, also, it's offline. So when it's on your iOS device or on your desktop, you don't have to be connected to the internet to interact with it.
No.
Right? So, but here's some of the things that I think make OmniFocus and set it far apart from everything else, and where I've never seen competitors even get close. There's another one called Things, and I've played with Things a couple times, but these are the ones I think sort of where OmniFocus crushes.
I'm on their website and I'm looking at their feature set. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm not doing any of that.
Well, I'm there just so I could chime in and say this exists on this versus that, because there's Mac, there's iOS, and there's web, and I'm gonna wherever you chime in, I'm gonna say where it's available. So go ahead.
Most of the features work across all platforms pretty well. The web is brand new, just came out a month ago, or 2 months ago. It's not feature complete to the other two. It's meant to be, hey, I can't get to my phone, I can't get to my desktop, I can just log into this thing and get to my projects. So, first and foremost, it was written for GTD from the start. Now it started off, there's lots of people who don't use GTD, and that's fine, but it was written for GTD.
It's a very expensive task manager. If you're not using the GTD methodology, you can just
if you just want to have tasks, you don't need this. You just literally need tasks. You can bring in, and they brought in Merlin Mann. They have worked with David Allen. They have built, setup guides. So this is something that's different from most. Like most task managers didn't think of themselves as working with GTD, and I think you can see that in the software when you use it. Some big ones, the ones that again I think. The number one killer feature, killer diller.
Actually,
there's 3, but so number 1 is repeating. And you say, what's repeating? What does repeating mean to me? Well, in OmniFocus, I can take things that happen on a schedule, right? That happen either every 10 days or every whatever. And in the GTD world, I take something that's on my brain, I then put it into my trusted system, OmniFocus, and I tell OmniFocus, this needs to repeat at this interval, right? It either comes up daily, take your pill, weekly, water the plants, yearly, get ready for your, Mother's Day or your wife's birthday or whatever, or every 5 years, renew your driver's license or whatever. And you can put it into the system, and it's very granular in how it can repeat. It has super granular. So you can say when it's completed. You can say repeat on a certain schedule every third Thursday. So if you think of GTD as I want to get this stuff out of my head and not have my head worrying about things like when I have to feed the cat or give it its medicine or when I have to renew the license or when I have to, I mean, I have one today at my washer dryer. There's a little water trap on the bottom of it and you have to empty it. If you don't empty it, all of a sudden stinky water starts coming out of the system. So you have to empty it every so often. I have it set for every 3 weeks. I don't remember it because I don't have to. It just shows up every 3 weeks. And I did it this morning and I'm like, oh, good, it was full. So OmniFocus, you can do it. And what's nice about it is once you set them, I'll move to the second feature. So really, really granular, amazing, repeating.
Not even a feature on their feature list. Like they don't even. It's like that just exists. Like it's not even a feature on the compare list.
And when we were talking to the
Nirvana.
To the Nirvana software, and I said, "Oh, repeating." He's like, "Oh, all I have to do is click here, clone this, clone this again."
Copied and pasted.
Right. What I do is I go click, and then when I click the last, it's a setting. Say the last item of this project is done. It then disappears. The next one is created in the background and is waiting.
Right.
And then will pop up when it needs to pop up.
Yep.
And that is extremely powerful. All right. 2 is the second one is perspectives. What is a perspective? So again, this is a very GTD thing, but really let's just break it down what it does.
This is a pro feature, custom perspectives.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about the thing you should buy if you're going to buy OmniFocus, or at least try it. But okay, is custom perspectives. They are basically, let's go to the Salesforce world since we have a thing.
Yeah,
they are customized list views. They're filters. Their ability to say, show me this and not this.
Right.
Show me all of this. Show me all my calls I need to do tomorrow. Show me all my projects that are starting next week. Show me whatever. And you build them like a list view. You name them, and then you can jump into them and get a perspective. So I have one called Arkus, and I have it on a key command, and it just shows me all my Arkus stuff. So I want to focus just on Arkus. Boom, key command, focusing on Arkus. Ooh, another one. Boom, focus just on home stuff. So I can literally tell OmniFocus just to show me just the stuff I need to see. Just show me the stuff that's due today, integrated with my calendar, forecast view, right? Just show me things in my weekly review. I look at ones that are like, show me things that are coming up in the next week, so I could kind of pick through them. We were traveling last month, and one of my favorite things to do is to kind of go into the future before I travel and kind of go through those things that are going to come up next week and knock them out and go move it. So I can say, I don't need to pop up and tell me to water the plants next week because I'm not going to be here. But it's sort of coming up, and I go in the future and I get rid of them. So that's 2. So perspectives are extremely powerful. I've been amazed, and actually the new version, OmniFocus 3, has much more customizable. You can put in a lot to them, and you can give them key commands, and you can give them icons, and they synchronize. So your custom perspectives synchronize.
Yep,
great.
Can I give one?
Sure, you give one.
I mean, I asked you the question.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, I feel like quick entry is just the feature, because if the information's coming at you hot and heavy and things are just being thrown at you, ideas you're having in your own head, ideas that are coming at you from other people, the ability to just hit a very quick key command all throughout the operating system. So it's really at the OS level that you are capturing and quick entering things into your trusted system called OmniFocus. And you can choose, like, very quickly, how do I want to capture this? Do I just want to let it just go into my inbox and I'm going to process my inbox later? Fine. Or do I want to, like, really take a second here and, like, put this in the right project, put this in the right tag or context, put a due date on it, and have it flow into the system that way? Just however you want. You can even attach things to it. You can put notes. Maybe it's a link. It's like, review this document. What document? This one, the link. Here's the link to the Google Doc. All that stuff, being able to capture it as it's happening in the moment before you forget it is absolutely key, and from anywhere you want.
And at the OS level.
At the
Let's
OS
just explain
level.
that.
So very important.
Yeah.
So anywhere you are on your computer, whether you are online, offline, on the web, in some other app, wherever
mail,
you are,
looking
it
at
does
Slack.
not matter.
Right.
You click, it's Option spacebar for me,
Yep.
and I think that's the default.
Nope.
It's not the default.
No, I train people to put Option
Okay,
spacebar
so I've been
because-
trained to do
yes,
that.
Yes.
Because it's next to Command spacebar.
Yes.
But anyway, so that's the key command for me. Whatever it is by default, it is. And this little window pops up from literally anywhere, and it takes less than a second. Boom, there it is. And you just type in your quick thing that you want to capture, hit enter, and move on. Move on. That idea came in, you got it, move on. It's awesome. It's such a empowering feeling to just be like, I got that. I got it. Now that, I mean, that's, I'll just move this to like a weird like capture moment. But I was talking, you know, when we traveled, we
Last month.
yeah, we did the vacation first, which was, you know, the race and all this other stuff. And I was talking to your wife who traveled with us, and she was on
I've
the race.
met her.
Yeah, I'm sure you have.
Was she having a fit in the forest?
No, this was before that. But I was telling her how packing for the trip was kind of challenging because it was sort of two trips. It was this vacation / relay running race where I was going to run like 20 miles and need it in 3 or 4 different legs. So I needed like running clothes. And then I needed like vacation loungewear. And then I needed like, I'm going to this professional conference clothing. So it was like sort of challenging. So I was like, you know, the hardest part was the 45 minutes I spent sitting there writing down all the things I needed to pack the day before I packed. The packing took me then about 5 minutes. So it was like, it took me 50 minutes to pack, but really the hard part was writing all the stuff down. And she's like, whoa, like you guys are so into this GTD. I just like throw things in the bag. I bring a lot of extra whatever, and I just totally forget things every time. And I'm like, yeah, if you just like took the 45 minutes, it probably took you an hour to pack anyway. It took me less. Like, right, exactly.
An hour.
I'm like, if you just took the time and like just sat there and thought like, what do I need to bring and how many, and make it into like a bit of a checklist. And like I do that over in Evernote actually. And then I quick capture, pack, look at the Evernote note, due tomorrow. That was it, done. And it was like, wow. So I only captured one thing in my OmniFocus, but it directed me to go look at a piece of reference material to then actually pack those things, or I could just check them off one by one. And it was like this, I don't know, maybe sparked something for her, perhaps, probably not. But it was a big thing for me. Like, that's how I pack. It's like that thinking is the hard part. Telling yourself to then go back to that list to actually do the physical activity of packing, super simple.
Yep.
Like there were a couple of things I needed to do. I had to go to storage, get my check-in luggage bag because I don't keep it in my apartment. It's too big. So that's where OmniFocus came in. It was like, all right, this is a project because I've got to go get the bag. I've got to check the list, and then I actually have to put the things in the bag.
The hardest part of GTD, or the thing that what you don't want to do with GTD, is create any barrier, mental, physical, or otherwise, to capture. Because if you are truly using GTD and you truly want mind like water, you want that clear space, you want that break, you need to be able to capture super fast. And that is why, for me, because I live in a digital world, OmniFocus wins, winner, winner, chicken dinner, is because to capture anywhere, whether it's on my watch using the woman's name, whether it's on the desktop with a quick key command that I can do faster than you can even open up a browser and log into whatever task system there is, or whether it's on my iOS device where it's sitting in my dock and I can hold down, force tap onto it, and boom, new thing.
That's what I do.
And you can type in it, and you can even hit. There's a button on the top that's save and new, and it'll bring you to another one. So you can just go do save and new. Boom, boom. Again, this is where I think they're really the best, is because they've really thought through all these things: multiple capture, quick entry, how to get things into it, making sure it's ubiquitous.
The views are awesome too. Like I live in I'm going to open it up right now. I essentially live in the forecast.
Yes.
because it's got calendar integration. So at these deep integration point levels, like I get to see my entire landscape. I get to see what's on my calendar all in order, and then what's due today. What are the tasks that are due? Like people's birthdays, like they're just in there because they're on the birthday calendar. So it's all there for me to interact with, and it's super simple for me to like drag things around and turn a task into a project, put it into a different perspective. Like it's very simple to just maneuver and move things around. With that said, and maybe we'll get to this in a few minutes, but
the cons.
Yeah, the
let's
cons.
get to those.
Okay.
Let me get one more.
I'm gonna chime in on the con list.
We're gonna go to the con list.
Okay.
But let me do the one other killer feature that again nobody else has that
what
I
is
have
it?
ever seen.
What is it?
It's called review mode.
Review mode's a good one.
So what is review mode? Well, in the world of OmniFocus, you can have projects, which are your big, larger outcomes in GTD world, right? Some trip you're going to take, or something that comes up every day, or feed the cat, or mow the lawn, or whatever. These projects are things that take more than one action, and you can make them again repeatable. And you can have this thing, you can have statuses to them. You can put projects on something called hold. You can have projects be dropped. And you can have projects that are called deferred, meaning the day that they're supposed to pop up into your life is in the future. And these are great because you can defer them out, and basically it's kind of like the 37 folders. You can put it into January's folder or put it into July's folder, and instead of having to go to the filing cabinet, open up the filing cabinet, and pull out July 1st and look at it, which is old school, it just pops up in OmniFocus because you deferred it. And you can defer it to any date. So if you wanted to show up on July 13th because your trip is on August 13th and you just want it to be in your head a month in advance, you can do that. Again, like for my birthday project doesn't show up on my birthday. My birthday project shows up at the end of May, kind of right after my anniversary. And then it pops up. And the first thing is like, think about your birthday. And then it's like, send out your birthday list. And then it's like, something else. I don't know.
Send out your birthday list?
Yeah, like go update your Amazon wish list. So if someone wants to buy you a gift, right, they can go. And then I send it to my wife and I say, here's stuff that's on my list. If you want to do that, if you don't, do whatever you want to do. Or if we're going to take a trip or something. Anyway. So that's all fine and good. So you have these projects, and some of them are on hold, and some of them are pending, and some of them are active, and you have your perspectives that you can then see. You're mostly always looking at active. You're not looking at pending. I have hundreds of pending projects. I have hundreds of on hold projects. What is review mode? For review mode, for every project that you have, whether it's on pending, active, or on hold, you can set how often you want it to show up to be reviewed. So... and it's a perspective, and it says, hey, this thing, you just want to kind of look at it and kind of have it kind of pop into your thing, go, do you want to do anything about this? Again, it could be on hold, so it could be something you say, I don't want to do anything now. It could be pending, could be 6 months from now that's going to pop up, or it could be active, and then OmniFocus tracks when you reviewed it and when you need to review it next. And when you go to this perspective, it shows you what you need to review. And reviewing is just like literally clicking a button. Reviewed.
I looked at this. Okay, I saw this. Ooh. But sometimes it sparks a ooh.
So let's move it back to GTD. In the GTD world, you have a couple of things. You have things that are kind of someday maybes, right? Someday. So I already told you how you kind of handle the folder piece of it, right? That's deferring things out. But you putting things on hold is kind of your someday maybes. So I have lots of projects that I just throw into OmniFocus, like take a trip to Dog's Head Island weekend, that place you went, right? That's in my OmniFocus. I have it set to review every 6 months because I don't want to see it every week, but every 6 months it pops up. I look at it. It's on hold. I go, do I want to do anything about this? And if I don't, I go mark reviewed and I move on. Sometimes they pop up and I'm like, oh, you know what? I mean, the best one is they pop up and I go, oh, and then I just click make active. Now I'm going to take this on, right? I decided. And you can change. Do you want to review it once a month, once a year, once every 6 months?
Yeah.
So like things that are like really like renew passport, which is a project that shows up once every 10 years. I don't want to review that every 6 months. There's no point to that. I review it once a year just to see. And then like, oh, it's coming up in 3 years, so whatever. And I review it once a year. Sometimes the best ones is when you're reviewing all these projects that are either pending or coming up or on hold, and you realize you've already done them. And you look at it like, oh, I've already done that. Click, mark, done. And then you're done. So that feature, that's a very GTD type of concept.
It really
it's
is.
built in. It's tracked at the project level. There's a custom perspective
Can
for
we
it.
make it very clear, though, that it should not replace your weekly review?
No.
It's not that.
No.
It's something different. It has the same name, and I don't know if they meant it to actually think about it like, this should replace your weekly review.
So they did. And here's how they meant it to happen. And you could use it this way.
You sure could, but it would be like
Make
very
every
difficult.
project 1 week review.
Yeah, but
And
that's
every week
like
you're
every
reviewing.
week you're reviewing all the things, and
Well, but you think about the original GTD,
Right.
OGTD, in the thing, it says review all your projects.
Right.
Now, because when he wrote this, and this is where I think it's
When
kind
you
of
say
fun.
he,
David Allen.
David Allen.
No, when David Allen wrote the book, first of all, the technology wasn't around us. He actually,
Right.
there's a couple podcasts and interviews he does when he talks about it, and he says, someday there'll be this great database that you'll be able to get, and you'll just be able to show me this and show me that, and can I see this at this point? But at this point, now you don't really have that. I remember this interview. I'll find it somewhere.
I mean, he showed us his GTD system,
His
which
app,
was basically
basically, yeah.
his app, which was like 3 wireframe drawings that were like
From 20
Lotus
years
Note
ago.
style drawings. It's like, here's
So-
my app. Go build it if you can.
So I am. So yes, they built it as yes, you could if you made every one of your projects weekly review and had a review every week. Then that's what you do in your weekly review.
Yeah,
You go
you
in
click
and
that,
and
you click that tab, and you just review everything in
The
there.
problem is you throw way too much in there. I don't want to review 300 things every week. So in my weekly review, I definitely use the review thing. But the beauty of OmniFocus is you can say based on the type of project, and I default mine to every 2 months. It defaults to I think every week, which I think is too literal. But I default it. I tell everyone when they set it up, set it to 2 months, and then you can change it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a project that is, me doing, I want to do the rock and roll half in Las Vegas. I don't need to look at that every 2 months, right? First of all, the race is only once a year. I basically need to look at it maybe once every 6 months because I'm going to decide whether I'm going to do it the next year. And sometimes I look at it and go, oh, let me go look at it. Oh, it's already passed. Okay, reviewed. And then I move on. That feature is nowhere in any other software that I've ever seen. So those killer things, those 3 top, hardware quick capture, review mode, and the extremely flexible repeating projects is just where there's just no one I even know gets close. Let's talk about cons.
So, like, the extreme flexibility brings some cons with it.
So, like Peter Parker, with
Brings
extreme power comes.
Yeah, it does bring some cons to the table. And now I'm gonna just bring this to Salesforce because I know that's like our primary audience most of the time.
Sure.
Imagine, if you will, Salesforce folks out there being given Salesforce and saying, "Here, you're an amazing salesperson now.
Right.
Here you go." Like, really? Am I? No. And here, you're the Salesforce admin. You're an amazing admin. You don't know anything, but here you go. You're now the admin. Such a powerful tool Salesforce is. Such a powerful platform, right? What am I speaking like?
Yoda.
Yoda? Okay.
Such a powerful tool Salesforce is.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
But if you don't really know what you're doing, you could make some pretty ridiculous mistakes and some sort of weird decisions, and you can all of a sudden get sour on Salesforce pretty quickly if it's not set up correctly. So OmniFocus has that thing to it as well, that it has so much power that at times you might over-engineer it with the recurring or repeating things. You might under-engineer it because you're a little scared of all the features that are in there, like that whole technology thing. I'm afraid to click that button, not sure what that's going to do. So those are, to me, some of the cons. I also find that like deferring with repeating sometimes gets a little screwy as it's syncing, and like things will just pop up from like 3 years ago, and I'm like, where did this come from? And I just mark it, I'm like, delete it, whatever. But I find that there are times where it's so daunting for new users that it is almost the barrier to adopting GTD is the system. And I try to pull people back from that, the folks I talk to, and say, well, okay, pull back from the system because it's not the system. Like, start with the concepts and just capture and review and make sure that you're processing the things that you're capturing and like making them into projects or like things that are in process as opposed to just sitting there. And then once you get used to that, you can learn how to use OmniFocus in that workflow and put it in and sort of just embed that into your workflow and let it just be the tool that it is, and don't go so complicated with it. Now, I know people make OmniFocus do jumping jacks. You're one of those people. You're a power user of this tool. I don't think of myself as a power user of OmniFocus. I think of myself as a good user of OmniFocus. I know how to use it. It serves my needs really well, and I would not want you to take it away from me. How about that?
Right. I agree. That is probably, I'd say the two biggest ones is complexity and probably the price are the two. I mean, if it were free,
everyone.
Well, no, the top three cons: complexity, price, and platform.
Right, you're on Apple unless you're just going to do web stuff, but web it's very limited in terms of what.
Well, two of the things
do.
We said go away.
I mean, you get an inbox, that's good. You have projects and flags, which we don't even use, tags, whatever.
You get a okay online version, but you don't get as much of the power. So
you get keyboard commands, but you've got to be on
the web,
which is you've got to be on the website, which again is a barrier to capturing because you might not be on the web. You might just be somewhere else.
That being said, they have the pricing one. They've just started a subscription version of it. You can still buy standalone anything. They still have, and I think they also have OmniFocus like regular and then OmniFocus Pro. Everybody at Arkus gets OmniFocus Pro for iOS and for the Mac. They've made that easy now because now it is just a subscription. And once you subscribe, the $9.99 a month or the $99.99 a year, you get web, iOS, desktop, all three Pro. Which
remember when the iPad and the iPhone were two different
apps?
That cost a decent amount of money and another decent amount of money.
Yeah,
that was annoying.
Yeah, well, so that's at least now. If you compare it to actually buying OmniFocus 3 Pro for the Mac and OmniFocus 3 Pro for iOS, it's about $175 if you buy both three. So subscription or not, again, I think it's good because you can at least buy it for a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then if you like it, you can continue it. And here's the thing, and I'll always make this argument, right? The argument I make, and people are like $110 a month, or let's call it $200 for 2 pieces of software. Like what? Here's the argument I would make.
Mm-hmm.
If there were a time in our life that you could get a brain upgrade, Justin, your brain,
I want an upgrade.
It's not so good at reading.
I agree,
but I will sell you the new reading chip, the third version that you can plug into your brain, and it'll help you read faster, better. It will help you comprehend it, whatever. And I'm going to put it inside your brain. It's going to do all these new fun things. It's going to be really, really good. I got a couple versions of it though. I got the cheap knockoff version that you're going to put inside your brain to help you read. I got the middle of the ground version, or I got this expensive version, but it really is the best, and it really does the most, and it'll help you comprehend. You're going to pick the one that's the best, because if you're going to put something into your brain that is that important, if you think of OmniFocus, you think of your projects, you think of GTD, if this stuff is that important to you,
right, then
$200 actually is nothing.
If you think of it as your operating system,
right,
then it's perfectly or
do time value.
Yeah,
right. Take your salary, chop it down by weeks, by time, by hour. You can get down to what your hourly worth. If you're a consultant, it's really easy, right? I mean, it's easier for me. And then say, okay, if this thing saves me 1 hour a year, what's that worth? If it saves me 10 hours a year, what's that worth?
$1 million.
Right. That's where I think you get to it. Again, there's no other tool. I mean, Ken, I hope you're not listening. There's no other tool that I would pay, right, that you could literally keep extending the value is something, because I would also argue that if you're someone who pays for even Mac hardware and that's why I think that's in the market there, iOS and iPhone, there's people who pay for it because it has these abilities. And these MacBook Pros aren't cheap, but they are very good. And the reason they're good is because the iOS is good, the operating system is good, and you get a lot out of it. And you use this thing. I mean, this thing I use 12 hours a day. It's just ridiculous how much I pound this machine, and that's important to me. So, again, it's not the only one out there. There's tons. If you want to look at to-do lists, you want to look at Nirvana, you want to look at, I think, even using the iOS built-in, it's called Reminders. The new version, iOS 13, it's going to have better features. They're fine. And there's setup guides for those, and you can use those. Even paper is fine. But for me, in order to have, because I want the best, and I want all these things, and I have put in, it's totally worth it, and it is the only reason, and it's the only thing I would ever use. Okay, let's wrap it up. Well, that's our pick of that week. That's the biggest pick of the week we've ever done. All right.
Pretty sure you picked it a few times, like OmniFocus, OmniFocus 2, OmniFocus 3, OmniFocus Beta, OmniFocus Web.
I can't wait to pick OmniFocus 4. The other thing is their support is very good. They answer emails, and
I've literally never contacted them.
They're very good. So that's actually something that is important when we think about support.
Yes.
Like, you send an email.
If you have a product,
human beings get back to you.
It. Yeah.
Human beings get back to you pretty quickly. They're very good. Their support is very good. So, and it's a good company. It's been around for a long time, and they're really in on the platform. So anyway, all the good reasons. All right, so that wraps it up for today.
All right.
Keep going. We'll be back in a couple weeks
We'll be back like mid-August, I think.
Yeah, with our third
Give us
episode.
a couple weeks.
And
let us clear our head and think about this.
Put it in my OmniFocus. Until then, it's Justin and Jason saying, enjoy those cloudy days.